Hey folks, Dan Griffith here, coming to you from Greenville, South Carolina. That's right between Charlotte and Atlanta. And man, the weather is really hot here. But I still got a real run in today. I'm in the middle of a sprint triathlon training block, which at my age is either inspiring or kind of dumb, depending on who you ask. But anyway, here we are. Well, Samson, that's my golden retriever, was sitting watching me lace up like I'd completely lost my mind. And honestly, maybe I have. But the run got me thinking about something I want to talk about today. So, welcome back to Seriously Don't Do That. This is week one of a brand new 12-week run, and we're opening up with what I'm calling ICP Month. 4 episodes, all about your ideal customer profile, who you actually sell to, why they buy, and the choices you have to make to actually grow. In today's episode, this is the one I probably should have recorded a long time ago, because what we're thinking about today is the single most expensive mistake I see founders make in regulated B2B markets. So let's get into it. So here's the don't. Seriously, don't sell to everyone. Don't build a fuzzy ICP. Don't build an aspirational ICP. Don't tell yourself that your product is for hospitals or for community banks or for insurance carriers. That's not an ICP. That's a TAM slide. And there's a difference. Look, I get it. I really do. You've built a great product. You raised money on the back of a big market. And when you sit down with your team, your sales hire, your marketing hire, maybe your co founder, and somebody asks, who's the customer? What comes out? Is it some version of, well, broadly, it's mid market healthcare organizations or fintech companies between Series A and Series C? Or even worse, look, our product can help anyone. I'm going to come back to that anyone line later in the episode because honestly, that instinct eats more capital than just about anything else I see in founder led companies. But for right now, I want you to sit with this. A fuzzy ICP is not a small problem. It's not the kind of thing you clean up later. It is the single most expensive mistake in capital efficient growth. And the reason it's so expensive is because every dollar you spent downstream, every salesperson, every conference, every LinkedIn campaign, every piece of content, every CRM dashboard, all of it gets multiplied by the clarity of your ICP. If your ICP is fuzzy, you don't just lose a little efficiency, right? You compound your waste with every hire and every campaign. And here's the anchor I want you to take from this whole episode, this one line. If you don't know the target you're shooting at, then everything's a target. Think about that. If you don't know the target you're shooting at, then everything's a target, which means your sales team is chasing everyone at once. Your marketing team is producing content for everyone and no one at the same time. And your founder, that's you, is the only person who can tell deal by deal whether something's really worth the effort. And that doesn't scale. That's not a system. That's just you. And the whole point of everywhere you're trying to get to is a system that can actually run without you sitting in on every situation or conversation. So let me back up a step here because I want to tell you why this matters more right now than it did even 3 or 4 years ago. I'll be honest with you. When I started selling for IBM, and look, I came up through this in a weird order. I had an undergraduate degree in accounting, then I went to law school, and then I decided pretty quickly I didn't want to be a lawyer. And then I ended up at IBM doing Fortune 50 sales, and then a bunch of startups and a couple of exits. But when I was at IBM 30 some years ago, you could survive a fuzzy ICP. You really could. The buyer didn't have as many options. They didn't research before they took your call. You could kind of stumble around in the market, and your charisma and your relationships and your steak dinners would carry you. Those days are long gone. So let me give you the data because I'm not just out here making this up. Salesforce dropped their state of sales report for 2026, and a couple of numbers in there really stopped me and jumped out. First one, B2B buyers now use an average of 2.5 buying channels before they ever talk to a salesperson. Two and a half, which means by the time they get on a call with you, they've already done their homework. Second number, 67% of sales reps say that customers require extensive education before they'll decide. And 46%, almost half, say data quality issues are hurting their sales. We'll come back to the data quality one other week, but file it away. And there's a really sharp piece I read by Tala Fakher over on Medium back in March that broke down ICP economics across early stage B2B companies. The number he landed on, 60 to 80% of sales and marketing budget at most B2B startups gets wasted on the wrong prospects. 60 to 80%. That's not a rounding error, folks. That is most of your capital going to people who are never going to buy for you. But here's the one I really want you to sit with because I think it's the most important number in this whole episode. Forrester ran a study in 2025 that found that 92% of B2B buyers start their evaluation with at least one vendor already in mind. 92%. And 41%, again, almost half, have a single preference before they even kick off their formal evaluation. Right. Hear that again. By the time a healthcare CIO is evaluating your product, there is a 92% chance somebody is already in the pole position. And there's already a 40% chance that that decision has essentially been made. So a fuzzy ICP isn't just expensive. It's actually worse than that. A fuzzy ICP locks you out of consideration. Because here's how this actually works. The buyer who's going to choose you didn't choose you out of nowhere. They chose you because months ago, sometimes years ago, they started seeing you as the obvious partner for an answer for something exactly like the problem that they are solving. Their pattern, their problem, their language, their context. And if your ICP is broadly mid-market healthcare, you cannot be the obvious answer for anybody. You can only be a generic option. And generic options, they just don't make a consideration set in 2026. They just don't. That's why this matters more now. The cost of fuzziness used to be just efficiency. Now, the cost of fuzziness is being on the list at all. So let me tell you what this actually looks like inside a company, because the pattern is so consistent, it's almost spooky. I do a lot of work in healthcare, banking, financial services, insurance. Those are the markets where my company, Greater Gain Group, spends most of its time. And I'll get a call every once in a while. Could be a CEO, could be a CRO who just got hired, could be a co-founder. The conversation almost always starts the same way. 3 sentences. I've heard them so many times, I could probably mouth them along with the founders that are saying them. Sentence 1, Dan, we're getting meetings, but nothing is converting. Right. You hear that and you think the problem might be the salesperson, the demo, the pricing, the follow-up. It's not. It's almost never any of those things first. It's the ICP. Sentence 2, honestly, everyone on my team has a different opinion on who we should be targeting. Sales thinks it's one thing, marketing thinks it's another. Customer success has a third opinion based on who actually renews with us. And the founder, he has a fourth opinion based on the last deal that they personally closed. You know what that means? It means there is no ICP. There are 5 ICPs and 5 heads, none of them written down, none of them tested, none of them agreed on. Sentence 3, and this is the one that hurts the founder the most. I still feel like I have to be in every important deal. Well, of course you do, because you're the only person in the company who actually knows who the customer is. You learned it the hard way, deal by deal, conversation by conversation, on airplanes and in conference hallways. It lives in your head, and nobody else can replicate it. So every deal that matters, bottlenecks on you. Let me paint a composite for you. Healthcare tech company, Series A, about $4 million in ARR, sells care coordination software. The founder, who built the product, tells me the market is post-acute care providers, which sounds kind of specific until you actually unpack it, because post-acute care could include skilled nursing facilities, home health agencies, hospice, long-term care, inpatient rehab, and inside each of those, you've got large multi-state operators, you've got regional groups, you've got single-site independents. They all buy completely differently, and they have different compliance pressures, different budgets, and they have different competitors already sitting in their tech stack. So this company I was talking to hires 2 SDRs and head of sales. They go to the big healthcare conference and they spend something like 80 grand in a quarter. They get meetings happen, but 6 months in, nothing's closed. And the founder calls me and says, sentence 1, we're getting meetings, but nothing is converting. You see how that happens? It's not that anybody did anything wrong exactly. They did the activity, they followed the playbook, but the playbook got built on top of an ICP that was actually 5 different ICPs glued together by the words post-acute. And so every meeting was a slightly different conversation, Every demo got retooled on the fly, every proposal looked custom, and the team, even though they were busy, never built any actual leverage from one meeting to the next. They were starting from scratch every time. That's what a fuzzy ICP looks like in practice. It looks like motion without momentum, activity without compounding, and a founder who genuinely can't tell whether the problem is the people, the product, or the process. So let me reframe what ICP actually is, because I think a lot of the confusion comes from the word itself. ICP is not a TAM, total addressable market exercise. Your TAM is the universe of companies who could theoretically benefit from your product. That's great for a fundraising deck. It's almost useless for go-to-market. ICP is not a persona document either. A persona is a description of one human buyer, what they read, what they care about, what frustrates them. Personas matter, for sure, but a stack of personas does not tell you which companies to pursue. ICP is honestly a strategic choice. It is the choice of which buyers you will actually pursue, and just as importantly, which buyers you will walk away from. Walking away. That's the part nobody wants to do, because every founder I know feels like walking away from a possible buyer is the same thing as leaving money on the table. It is not. Walking away from the wrong buyer is the most capital efficient decision you could actually make, because the cost of pursuing the wrong buyer isn't just the cost of pursuit. It's the opportunity cost of every minute and every dollar you didn't spend on the right one, right? Let me give you a downstream cost most founders don't think about. Jason Lemkin over at SaaStr has been writing about this number for years, and it still floors me every time I see it. 70% of first VP of Sales do not make it 12 months in the role. 70%. And one of the big reasons, Lemkin has written about this many times, is that they inherit an undefined ICP. They walk in, they ask who's the customer, they get 5 different answers, they spend 2 quarters trying to figure it out. By quarter 3, they're behind on the number. By quarter 4, they're let go. So when I say a fuzzy ICP is the most expensive mistake, I'm not just talking about wasted marketing spend. I'm talking about your first VP of sales. I'm talking about the head of revenue you finally got around to hiring. I'm talking about the agency you put on retainer 12 months ago. I'm talking about the CRM implementation, which, by the way, is going to reflect the chaos of your ICP perfectly, because the CRM is downstream of the strategy, not the other way around. All of those costs roll up on top of an undefined ICP. Now, let me tell you what a real ICP looks like. A real ICP is documented, shared decision about which segments you serve, which buyer roles matter inside those segments, what triggers actually cause them to buy, what their buying committee looks like, where they hang out, what we call the digital watering hole, and what language resonates with that buyer specifically. It is a strategic choice. It is a written decision, and once it's written, it becomes the foundation of everything else downstream. Your sales hires know who to talk to, your marketing team knows what to write, your CRM stage is mapped to a real buyer journey. Your conferences become a focused account and conversation strategy, not a booth and hope situation. Your follow-up, it has structure. And, this is the big one, your founder starts to step out of every deal because the team finally has the same picture of the buyer that you do. That's the transition. You move from founder-led sales to a team-run revenue process. And it doesn't start with hiring. It doesn't start with software. It starts with ICP clarity. It starts with the choice. So, how do you actually do this? Look, I'm not going to pitch you on a service for 15 minutes on this free podcast. That's not what this is. But I do want to be honest about how we approach it, because I get the question a lot. Greater Gain Group has a thing we call the ICP Sprint. It's the first phase of our revenue growth program. It's a 2 to 3 week engagement where we do structured market research, a real competitive review, an analysis of your existing customers, looking at who's actually winning, by the way, not just who you wish was winning. And then we build out 3 to 5 prioritized segments with full buyer intelligence, messaging frameworks, buying committee mapping, and a market intelligence layer that tells you where these buyers actually hang out. the digital watering holes we talked about. This is the conferences, associations, communities where they actually get their information. What you walk away with is a 30 to 35 page strategic document. But here's the thing, and this is the part I really want you to hear. The document is not the point. The point is shared clarity. The point is that you, your sales leader, your marketing person, your customer success person, your co-founder, if you've got one, all walk away with the same picture of the buyer. That's the deliverable. The PDF is just the artifact. And I'll be transparent about our price because I always am. The ICP Sprint is $7,500, fixed fee, 2 to 3 weeks. We priced it that way on purpose because we don't want founders bleeding consulting budget for months trying to answer a question that should really take 2 to 3 weeks to answer properly. But honestly, here's what I really want you to hear. My philosophy on this whole thing is we teach you how to fish. We're not trying to be your agency forever. We're not trying to build a black box engine you can never see inside. I want you to do this with us. And then I want your team to own it. Capital efficient, transferable, no long-term dependency. That's the goal. And if you never hire us, that is totally fine, dude. The frameworks are out there. The work of writing it down is the work. Just do it. Don't let another quarter go by with 5 ICPs floating around in 5 heads. Now, let me handle the objection I know is sitting in some of your minds right now, because I've heard it 100 times. But Dan, our product can really help anyone. Like literally anyone in healthcare would benefit from our platform. Why would we artificially narrow ourselves? So look, I want to take this seriously because it's not a dumb question. It's an instinct that comes from a real place. You built something that solves a real problem, and you've seen evidence that lots of different buyers respond to it. So the question is honest, but the answer, it's wrong. And here's why. Narrowing your ICP is not the same thing as narrowing your market. Your market is your market. It does not change because of how you go to market. What changes is who you talk to first, when you say to what you say to them, and how compelling you sound when you say it. That's a case study pattern I keep seeing. We ran one back in March that captured it actually pretty well, and I've watched this play out in person at companies I've actually worked with in the past. A B2B SaaS company is selling into, quote, mid-market companies. Broad, vague. Sales cycles are running 9, 10, 11 months. Conversion rates are mediocre. Then they narrow to a specific situational ICP, something like Series B company that hired their first VP of sales. And what happens? Sales cycles compress dramatically. We're talking from 10 months down to 3 or 4. Why? Because when you talk to that specific buyer in that specific moment with that specific situation, you sound like you understand them. You sound like you were built for them. And remember the Forrester data we talked about earlier? 92% of buyers start with somebody already in mind. The narrow ICP is what makes you that somebody. And here's the thing. Once you're winning in the narrow ICP, you can expand. You absolutely can. You can go from Series B with first VP of sales to Series A and Series B with first VP of sales to Series A through Series C with or without a VP of sales. That's a legitimate expansion path, but you've earned it. You've earned it by winning the narrow market first. You didn't start broad and try to win narrow. You started narrow and won broad. Founders who start broad, they never get the win. They just stay broad forever, burning capital, hoping the next conference produces a deal that changes the trajectory. So that our product helps anyone instinct, it's not your moat, it's your trap. Seriously, don't do that. Okay, so what do you actually do about this in the next 7 days? I'm a big believer that if you watch a podcast or listen to a podcast and you don't do something with it, you might as well have watched it for entertainment. So here's a concrete assignment. One thing. In your next leadership meeting, whatever you call it, whether it's an exec sync or Monday huddle or whatever, I want you to do this. Get your sales lead, your marketing lead, and your customer success lead in the room. If you're early enough that all of those are the same person, get them anyway. Get your co-founder in there. Get whoever you've got on the GTM side. And ask one question. And here's the trick. Each person individually on a Post-it note or a piece of paper has to write down their answer. No discussion first. The question is, describe our ideal customer in 2 sentences. That's it. 2 sentences. Industry size, situation, problem you solve for them. 2 sentences. Don't let people collaborate. Don't let them check with you first. Don't let them sanity check it against the website. Just have everyone write down what they actually believe. Then everybody reads theirs out loud. And you will be, I promise you this, I've watched this exercise dozens of times. You will be stunned. The answers will not match. They may not even be close. Sales will describe a different customer than marketing. Marketing will describe a different customer than customer success. And your description, the founder description, will probably be different from all of them. Don't get mad. Don't blame anyone. The disagreement is the data. That gap between the 5 people in the room is exactly the gap that is costing you sales-focused conversations every week. And once you can see it, then you can start to close it. But you can't fix a problem you can't see. And right now, in a lot of founder-led companies I talk to, this gap is invisible because nobody ever runs the exercise. So that's the homework. Run the exercise, take a picture of the post-its, and if you want, hit me up on LinkedIn and tell me what happened. I genuinely want to hear it. So next week, week 2 of the ICP Sprint Month, we're going to go deeper because most of you, after you run that exercise, are going to look at the gap and say, okay, great, Dan, now what? And a lot of you are going to want to sit down and build the real ICP yourself. And here's the thing, you can. You absolutely can. But there are about 6 predictable mistakes founders make when they build their first real ICP. And I see all 6 of them all the time. Sometimes from really smart, really experienced founders. So next week, we're going to break those down, how founders actually build and miss the ICP and what to do differently. It's the most actionable episode in the series, in my opinion. So make sure to come back for this one. All right, folks. Well, that's the episode. If this helped, do me a favor. Share it with one founder you know in healthcare, banking, financial services, or insurance who's stuck in this exact spot. They'll thank you for it. I'm Dan Griffith. This was Seriously Don't Do That. And remember, if you don't know the target you're shooting at, then everything's a target. So pick the target. See you next week.